I just finished my last round game here in Serbia at the European Club Cup, and it's a very exciting game, so I'm looking forward to share it with you in this video. I was playing with the black pieces against very strong international master from Germany, Aljoscha Feuerstack. He is from my age and he had actually a very good tournament, very solid performance with 4 draws and 2 wins. So that actually meant for him that he had to win our battle to secure a GM norm. And well, I had it in mind. I tried to play solid, but I know that at some point he may really try to force matters, and who knows, maybe I will get my chances. That was my approach going into the game. Let's see what happened. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. So here we go. My opponent played the move 1 e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, the Rue Lopez, a6, bishop a4. And here I decided to go for the move knight ge7. Very popular system, has been played as a surprise weapon, but it's actually quite a solid move as well. After the move c3, I'm developing the knight to g6, from where defends the pawn on e5. My opponent opened the center here with the move d4. I decided to take, pawn takes, bishop b4 check. He blocks with the knight, knight c3. And I decided here to go for the move d5. Pawn takes d5, bishop takes c3, check, white recaptures, and I take with the queen. So this was pretty much sort of a game I had been preparing for. I've given up the bishop pair, but I do have quite a solid position. I'm about to complete my development here. And, well, eventually I would like to play against these hanging pawns in the center by, for instance, setting up a blockade on the light squares. Let's see if that works out in this game. My opponent played here bishop b3, attacking the queen. And I move the queen to e4, giving a check. He blocks with the bishop, the other bishop. Both sides are castling. And here, well, I felt pretty confident, to be honest. But I was struggling to come up with the most effective setup for my pieces. And well, one very logical move I really wanted to play is bishop g4. I didn't do it in the end because, to be honest, I felt that in the position after h3 and everything is coming off the board, that perhaps his 2 bishops, they are potentially a bit better than my knights. On the other hand, okay, the double pawns, they are not looking great. But if I play a move like knight a5 in this case, the position is objectively pretty even. Instead, I decided to play here the move knight a5 right away. And well, then the queens are staying on the board. But that's maybe not good news for me. White has different ways of challenging the queen. Knight g5 is an interesting move. Bishop c2 was played in the game. Queen d5. And here my opponent surprised me with a very good move. Queen to b1. It's a move I basically completely had ignored, but the queen is doing pretty well here. There are always ideas to go for something like bishop e4, chase that queen away from the center. And now I can still play very solid move like knight c4, and maybe white is a tad better, but it's a game. But I got a bit too excited here. I felt like his queen is actually a bit offside, so I wanted to take over the initiative on the other side of the board. I played here the move f5 to control the e4 square, but later I may also consider playing the move f4 to attack the bishop. Well, he played rook e1, it's a solid move. I played here the move b6, and well, I was dreaming of this sort of setup with the bishop coming to b7. Pressure on this long diagonal. Well, I was dreaming of some sort of an attack. But during the game, I realized that my opponent had a very good move, as I'm in fact not really threatening anything on the diagonal. And he could have gone here for the move h4, with the plan that if I continue with bishop b7, he can attack the knight. If the knight goes away, he puts the bishop on g5. And well, that knight will stay on f3, and white has fantastic prospects. First of all, he's attacking the knight on e7, but there are ideas also just to get the other pieces into the game. You made double rooks. Well, it's just looking fantastic, and the h-pawn is a very nice tool to open up my king's position. But fortunately for me, my opponent played knight e2. It's the move I had actually expected, because I played here bishop b7, but it's a missed opportunity. I should have gone here for this move f4, trapping the bishop on e3. Of course, I had seen it, but I thought, well, there is bishop e4, and the queen is under an attack. If the queen goes away, this move I missed, queen f7, the bishop is still trapped on e3. He takes on a8, I can take on e3, I'm attacking his knight. And, well, if you do take back, there's queen f2 check, and you can take the knight eventually. If you block with knight f3, I didn't calculate so far, well, probably you can just take. And there are ideas even with a move like c6 to trap that bishop into the corner. It's a very complicated line, but black seems to be all right. Anyway, I didn't go for it. I played bishop b7, threatening mate in 1. You never know, maybe he missed it. Well, to be honest, I didn't expect that at all. f3. Blocking the diagonal, and now I realize that if I play a call move like rook 88, he may play the move c4. That's exactly what he wants. I didn't play rook 88 because if you take everything, well, there is this move bishop to b3, and I'm losing the queen. Therefore, I decided to sidestep these tricks on the a2 g8 diagonal. My opponent is in good shape. He played bishop f2, clearing the e-file for the rook. I played here rook f6, trying to hold my position together. Maybe my other rook can come into the game. But frankly speaking, I was very concerned about a move like bishop d3 to prepare the move c4 to attack the queen. Maybe later, if the queen goes away, play d5 and so on. But instead, my opponent, also getting lower on time, he decided now to force matters with his move c4. And of course, I had seen this idea, but initially I was not too impressed with this move. I take on c4, and his plan was to follow up with bishop b3 to attack the knight on c4, which is pinned. And here I had to calculate very deeply. There are so many options. The first line I looked at is knight takes d2, so that if he takes my queen, I take his queen. The line continues with bishop takes b7, attacking the rook, rook b8, bishop takes a6, and my knight is in trouble, but knight a3 is apparently quite a good move. I didn't really trust my position. In this line there is knight c2 coming. There's also this idea to go b5 and to trap the bishop. If the bishop goes back to d3, well, then there's knight f4, and black is way too active, so white doesn't get a chance to employ his pair of bishops. So that would have been a good line. Instead, I play here the move b5. So I'm securing the knight on c4. I also looked at ideas that if the b-file gets open, that my rook can swing over to b6 to attack the queen on b1. I think white is still in good shape after something like queen c2, and then get ready to take everything and take it from there. That looks like quite a sensible move. But my opponent decided to take here to force the issue. But after b takes c4, bishop takes c4, attacking the queen, I take his bishop, he takes my bishop, but now I come back with the queen to c6 to offer the exchange of queens and indirectly defend the rook on a8. So, well, he had also calculated it. He traded off queens here, and white is of course a bit better in this endgame because he will go for the move rook ac1. I decided to take, and my pawn on c7 is hanging, but I had this very good move, rook b8, and it's very important to have seen this move in advance. White cannot capture the pawn on c7 because there is rook b1, and he will be forced to give up the bishop. The line even continues here with king f2. He's threatening checkmate, and the rook is hanging, but I can go back to e8. So that's what I had seen, of course. He cannot take the pawn on c7, but the pawn is not running away. What should he do? He should do something about his king, about his back rank, so that he is preparing to take the pawn. I was really concerned about a move like h4, with the idea to go h5, kick the knight away, the bishop can come to g3. White is still pressing in that endgame. I have to be very careful. But my opponent played g3 with the very same idea to make sure that the king can always come to g2. However, I can go here for rook b7, defending the pawn, rook c6, attacking the pawn on a6, which I cannot really defend, but it's not a problem. I bring my king to the center. Very important endgame lesson here, as now after rook takes a6, I'm a pawn down, but I'm going to play very actively now. First of all, my knight on g6 is badly placed. I wanted to rejoin the game. I go knight e7. It's a very important move. The knight is heading for the d5 square. He goes there for rook a5, preventing my knight from coming to d5, keeping the pawn on f5 under control. I played king f7. He's pushing the pawn, but now I can give a check on b1. King g2 and rook b2, and that's also a very important move, because here you can see that white is actually playing without that king and bishop. He played here king to f1, just to get out of the pin along the second rank, but the bishop still cannot do much. I can activate my king, for instance. I decided here to play this move c6 to create some support for that knight coming into d5. He went rook a7, and there are tricks here, like he wants to go d5, sacrifice the pawn, and then go bishop c5, and my knight on e7 will be in trouble. Therefore I go king e6, and I think I'm doing absolutely okay. Even if he pushes the pawn, I can go with my rook behind that passed pawn. Remember that endgame lesson I discussed in my game I covered earlier this week against Kushuk Sari. You can look up a similar very interesting rook endgame in which I was also a pawn down and managed to hold. Here, line is probably somewhat simpler for me. I think I'm doing okay. He decided here to play this move, d5. Anyway, and that's to open up the diagonal for the bishop. So the bishop potentially, if the pawn is coming to a7, you can move the rook and try to promote that pawn. However, anyway, I'm going there with my knight. His plan is to take on g7, but I have the move rook to b1. And he is simply unable to break free with his king. King g2, rook b2. Once again, pinning the bishop on f2. And there's absolutely no time here to take that pawn on h7. Let it be clear. Here is knight e3. And it's something I had calculated from afar, and black is actually winning here, because if the king goes away, I can take the bishop. If the king goes back to g1, then it's rook b1 with check. The king can't go anywhere. If you go bishop e1, I can take it with the rook king f2. It's a double attack. I can move my knight away to c2, and my rook is well defended. So I was happy to have spotted that defensive mechanism for black. Instead, my opponent went king f1, I went rook to b1, and what should he do? Maybe he can go something like bishop e1, but then the bishop is no longer on that active diagonal. In the game, I was even thinking about a move like rook b2 to cut off the king and prepare this move knight e3. Another move which is very interesting is c5, with the idea to generate counterplay with my own passed pawn. Anyway, move 40, my opponent played king g2, we repeated the moves rook b2, but now, trying to fight for his GM norm, he had to keep the game going. He played here f4, which is an interesting attempt, so that the king can come to f3. One interesting line here is to push my own pawn, but I didn't want to gamble and play for a win. Frankly speaking, I always felt that that pawn can easily be stopped if the rook will come behind, or if you move the king, the bishop can come to d4. So I was not really thinking about creating winning chances here. I decided to go knight f6 with the plan of coming to e4 and hit the bishop on f2, king f3, rook b3 check. So once again, bishop cannot block. I will attack the bishop. So he had to go with the king again, rook b2. I just keep following the king, and the king cannot really come to the queen side as the bishop will be hanging. So I'll just keep giving checks here. King f3, rook b3, king g2, rook b2, king f1. And here again, I may consider giving a check. And then there's this move bishop e1 again. There are various good moves. Knight e4 is positionally speaking a nice move. So attacking the bishop. And if he goes there, I was looking at this line once again to advance the pawn. But once again, I was not convinced. I was calculating all of this. I feel that white is not risking too much here. So instead of knight e4, I went for knight g4, attacking the bishop from the different side. Bishop to g1 to defend the pawn. But anyway, I can take on h2. Bishop takes, rook takes. And now I've managed to win my pawn back. It's a 3 versus 3. He goes for the move a5. I went rook a2. Rook takes h7. Rook takes a5. Rook h6. King d7. Rook h7. We repeated the moves a few times. And with this repetition, I ruined his dream of scoring his GM norm. I was happy to get away with half a point, even though the middle game was very interesting. I really tried to create something, but yeah, I think it was a typical last round game where we both missed quite some interesting ideas in that middle game. Happy that I managed to play the end game quite actively and well, basically without any problems. I managed to save that end game despite being a pawn down. So, well, with this draw, the tournament is coming to an end. I have scored 3 out of 7. Small loss of rating here, which is something I'm not too unhappy about. It may sound strange, but it's my first tournament in 2 years. It's a very tough tournament. I have played only against strong players, so it was really working hard every day, playing on board 1 for my team SV Erkenschwick. I'm very happy to have played this event. Very good atmosphere within the team, and well, also in the playing hall, just to be playing next to all these world-class players. That's just such a fantastic experience. So I hope you did enjoy the coverage of my games. I'm flying home tomorrow, and then we'll see what's coming next on my YouTube channel. Maybe I will cover a game or two from this event still, because Gukesh, Pragnananda, Irigaisi, so many other top players were playing. So while I'm playing myself, I had absolutely no time to look at the other games. So I don't really know what happened in the rest of the event, but that's something I'm looking forward to look at later. First, traveling back home, and then, well, before I do that, we will go to the closing ceremony, maybe have a small drink with the friends, with my teammates, and then it's nice. Was a nice time for now. Thanks for watching, and I will see you very, very soon again. Bye bye.